I have watched people walk into my courtroom carrying expensive watches, designer clothing, and carefully prepared stories. But I remember one case where a woman entered believing her carefully created image was stronger than the truth itself. She arrived with millions of followers, a team of people managing her reputation, and a story so polished that it sounded impossible to question. Then she looked at me and said, "Everyone already knows who I am. They know I would never lie." I remember that moment clearly. Not because of what she said, because of what she was trying so hard to hide, a small silver flash drive sitting inside a plain envelope on my bench. She had no idea that one person connected to that drive would eventually walk into my courtroom and change everything. Before I take you deeper into this case, make sure you are subscribed for more powerful courtroom stories like this. If you have not subscribed yet, do it now. And comment below where you are watching from, because I always want to know how far these courtroom stories travel. Stay with me, because what happened after I called the final witness changed the entire case. The case of Madison Vale looked simple at first. A famous lifestyle influencer accused her former assistant, Olivia Carter, of damaging her reputation and leaking private information online. Madison claimed Olivia had betrayed her trust after years of working behind the scenes. She demanded financial compensation for the damage she said had been done to her career. On paper, it appeared to be a dispute between a successful public figure and a former employee. But after years on the bench, I have learned something important. The cases that look simple are often the ones hiding the most complicated truths. I remember Madison walking into my courtroom that morning. She did not enter like someone nervous about losing. She entered like someone arriving at an event where everyone had already agreed with her. Her outfit was flawless, her makeup was carefully done, her posture was perfect. She smiled toward the gallery as if she expected recognition. Then she looked at Olivia, and the smile disappeared. That interested me, because confidence is natural when people believe they are telling the truth. But performance requires an audience. Across the courtroom sat Olivia Carter. She looked completely different. No expensive clothing, no attempt to impress anyone, just a simple blue sweater, a worn notebook, and a nervous expression from someone who had spent months being blamed publicly. I noticed the notebook immediately. It was old, the corners were bent, several pages were marked with small handwritten notes. Olivia kept one hand resting on it throughout the hearing. I have learned that personal objects often tell stories before people do. Sometimes they hold memories. Sometimes they hold proof. Sometimes they hold the only version of the truth someone was able to protect. Madison's attorney began the opening statement. He described Olivia as a jealous former employee who wanted attention. He claimed she became angry after losing her position and created false information to harm Madison's brand. "Your Honor," he said confidently, "my client built a successful career through honesty and hard work." I wrote that sentence down. Honesty, that word is used often, but in a courtroom, honesty is not something people claim. It is something they prove. I turned toward Madison. "Tell me what happened." She stood immediately. "Your Honor, Olivia had access to my private accounts, my business information, and my personal files." "Did she steal anything?" "She stole my trust." I watched her carefully. That answer was emotional, but not specific. I asked again, "What exactly did she do?" Madison sighed. "She created fake documents and shared them online to make people believe I was dishonest." "Do you have proof she created them?" Her attorney quickly responded. "We have evidence showing the posts came from accounts connected to information Olivia had access to." Connected, another important word, because connection and proof are not always the same thing. I turned toward Olivia. "Your response." She stood slowly. I didn't create anything, Your Honor. Did you share private information? No. Did you ever post anything about Mrs. Vale? No. Her answers were simple, direct, but Madison immediately laughed, not loudly, just enough for everyone to hear. I looked toward her. Something funny, Mrs. Vale. She smiled. No, Your Honor. Then perhaps you can explain. She leaned forward. Because everyone knows Olivia is lying. The courtroom became quiet. I watched Olivia lower her eyes, not from guilt, from exhaustion. There is a difference. Guilty people often worry about being exposed. Innocent people often worry that nobody will listen. I asked Madison a simple question. How does everyone know? She smiled. Because my audience knows me. I paused. Your audience? Yes. Your followers? Yes. I nodded. Interesting, very interesting. Millions of followers can create influence. But they cannot replace evidence. I looked down at the documents in front of me. A timeline, a series of screenshots, several financial records. Something did not fit. The story Madison presented was too perfect. Every mistake had an explanation. Every question had an answer. Every accusation had a prepared response. And that is when I noticed something. People who tell the truth usually remember events. People who create stories often remember performances. I turned toward Olivia. Why did you keep that notebook? She looked surprised by the question. Then she touched it gently. Because I knew nobody would believe me without records. That answer stayed with me. I looked toward the notebook, then toward Madison, because hidden inside those pages was a timeline that Madison never expected anyone to see. And before this case was over, the woman who built her career on controlling the story was about to lose control of the only story that mattered. I kept my attention on Olivia Carter after she mentioned the notebook. She had carried it into my courtroom quietly. No dramatic presentation, no attempt to create sympathy. Just a worn notebook that looked like it had been used more for survival than appearance. I looked toward her. Miss Carter, how long did you work for Mrs. Vale? 3 years, Your Honor. Your position? I was her executive assistant. What did that involve? She took a breath. Almost everything. I waited. Explain. Olivia looked down at the notebook. I managed schedules, brand partnerships, emails, travel arrangements, contracts, and sometimes personal matters, so you had significant access. Yes, that answer was important. Because access was the exact thing Madison was using to make Olivia look suspicious. But access alone does not create guilt. A person can hold a key without opening a door. They can know a password without using it. They can stand close to someone's success without trying to destroy it. I turned toward Madison. Mrs. Vale, is that accurate? Yes. You trusted her with these responsibilities. I did. Why? Madison smiled slightly. Because she worked for me. I noticed the wording, not because she was loyal, not because she was dependable. Because she worked for her, a small difference. But sometimes small differences reveal how people view those around them. I looked back at Olivia. What changed? Her expression became quieter. I found something. What? She hesitated. Then she opened the notebook. I found inconsistencies in sponsored content reports. The courtroom became still. Madison immediately shifted in her chair. I noticed. She didn't interrupt. She didn't object. She simply changed her posture. That interested me. I have learned that people often react before they speak. The body usually answers first. I looked at Olivia. What kind of inconsistencies? Payments that didn't match the contracts. Explains. Some brands were charged one amount, but the public reports showed another. Did you accuse Mrs. Vale of stealing? No. Did you tell anyone? Yes. Who? The accounting department. And what happened? Olivia looked down. 2 days later, I was fired. Interesting. Very interesting. I looked toward Madison. Was she fired 2 days after reporting financial concerns? Her attorney stood. Your Honor, the timing alone proves nothing. Correct. I looked at him, which is why I asked a question. He sat down. I returned to Olivia. After your termination, what happened? My access was removed. To everything? Yes. Your email? Yes. Your work accounts? Yes. Your company files? Yes. I made another note. Then Madison's attorney approached the evidence table, Your Honor. My client has evidence that after termination, Ms. Carter began creating negative content about her online. He placed printed screenshots before me. I reviewed them. Several anonymous posts criticized Madison. The posts accused her of dishonesty. The dates were after Olivia's termination. The attorney looked confident. These posts appeared after their relationship ended. I nodded. Do you know who created these accounts? No. Do you know who controlled them? No. Do you have evidence connecting Miss Carter to them? He paused. Not directly. Interesting, very interesting. Another assumption presented as proof. I looked toward Madison. You said earlier everyone knows Olivia is lying. Yes. What evidence do you personally have that she created these posts? Madison smiled. The timing? The timing? She was angry after losing her job. I leaned back slightly. So your evidence is that she had a reason? Yes, not that she did it. She became quiet. That silence mattered. Because reasons are easy to create. Evidence is harder. I looked toward the notebook again. Mrs. Carter, what exactly did you record in here? She opened to several marked pages. Dates. Emails I received. Questions I asked. Responses I got. Everything connected to the reports. Madison laughed softly. Agin, that same small laugh. I looked toward her. Something amusing? She shook her head. No, Your Honor, because from where I am sitting, you seem very confident that this notebook means nothing. Madison smiled. It doesn't. Why? Because anyone can write anything in a notebook. That was true. Anyone can write anything. But the problem was, a notebook is not powerful because of what is written inside. It is powerful because of what can be verified. I turned another page. A handwritten entry caught my attention. It contained a date, a meeting time, and the name of a company executive below it. Olivia had written one sentence. Ask why public numbers do not match private contracts. Told not to ask again. I looked at Madison, then at the page, then back at Madison, because that single sentence created a question I had not expected. If Olivia was trying to damage Madison's career, why had she been documenting concerns before she ever lost her job? I reached for the next document, a company email. The sender was Madison Vale. The recipient was Olivia Carter, and the subject line was, "Stop digging." I opened it. The first sentence changed the entire feeling inside my courtroom because it was not an accusation. It was a warning. And suddenly, the woman claiming Olivia was the problem had to explain why she was afraid of what Olivia might discover. I kept my eyes on the email displayed in front of me. The subject line alone was enough to change the atmosphere inside my courtroom. Stop digging. Those two words carried more weight than Madison Vale probably intended, because people who have nothing to hide rarely tell someone to stop looking. They explain, they clarify, they provide answers. But people who fear what someone might find often try to close the door before anyone reaches it. I looked toward Madison. Mrs. Vale, did you send this email? She remained silent for a moment. Then she answered, yes, to Olivia Carter. Yes, why? She adjusted herself in the witness chair. I was frustrated. With what? Her constant questions. I nodded. Questions about financial reports. Yes. Questions about brand partnerships. Yes. Questions about numbers that did not match. She paused. Yes. Interesting. Very interesting. because Madison had spent the entire morning trying to convince me Olivia was a disgruntled former employee. But now she was admitting Olivia had been asking legitimate business questions before their relationship ended. I turned toward Olivia. "Did you receive this email before you were terminated?" "Yes." "How long before?" 2 days. I looked back at Madison. 2 days after this email, you fired her? "Yes." "Why?" "Because I no longer trusted her." I wrote that down. Trust. Another word people often use when they cannot explain their real reasons. I looked toward Madison. "What exactly did she do that made you lose trust?" "She was investigating things that were not her responsibility." I leaned slightly forward. "Not her responsibility?" "No. But you hired her to manage your business operations." "Yes." "You gave her access to those records." "Yes." "So when she noticed something unusual," I paused. "You considered the question itself to be the problem." Madison did not answer. That silence was important. I have learned that people reveal their beliefs through the things they avoid defending. Madison's attorney stood. "Your Honor, my client is a public figure. She has thousands of people depending on her. She cannot allow an employee to question every decision." I listened carefully. Then I looked at him. Questioning a decision and exposing dishonesty are two different things. He nodded. "But there is no proof of dishonesty." I looked at the email. "Not yet." The courtroom became quiet. Those two words mattered. Not yet, because I had learned enough to know this case was not going to be decided by accusations. It was going to be decided by what existed beyond the accusations. I turned back toward Madison. "Mrs. Vale, how did your public image become so important to your business?" She smiled. "My reputation is my business. Explain. My followers trust me." "Your income depends on that trust." "Yes." "So protecting your image is financially important." "Of course." I nodded. Interesting, very interesting, because that answer explained something. This was not only about a former employee. This was about someone whose entire career depended on controlling what people believed. And when someone builds their success around perception, the truth becomes their biggest threat. I looked toward Olivia. Miss Carter, after you were terminated, why did you keep the notebook?" She touched the cover because I knew she would say I was lying. "Did you plan to publish it?" "No." "Did you send it reporters?" "No." "Did you post it online?" "No." "Then why preserve it?" Her answer was quiet. "Because I wanted someone to know what actually happened." That answer stayed with me, not because it was dramatic, because it was human. She wasn't looking for attention. She was looking for someone to listen. I looked at the evidence again, the email, the notebook, the termination timeline. Something was becoming clear. But I needed one more piece. A piece that could connect the private decisions inside Madison's company to the public image she worked so hard to protect. I asked Madison one final question. "Mrs. Vale," she looked at me, "before Olivia was terminated, did you ask anyone else to review the financial concerns she raised?" Her answer came quickly. "No." "Why not?" "Because I knew she was wrong." I watched her carefully. Too quick. Too confident. That was the first moment I saw the mistake. She wasn't answering from memory. She was answering from preparation. I turned toward the documents. Then I looked at the brown evidence folder sitting beside my bench. Inside it was the final piece Olivia had mentioned, the one person who could confirm whether those financial reports were really mistakes or whether Olivia had discovered something Madison never wanted anyone to see. I had not called that witness yet, but I was about to. And Madison Vale had no idea that the person walking into my courtroom next was the one person she could not control. I remember the exact moment when I called the final witness. Madison Vale had spent the entire morning controlling the story. She controlled the accusations. She controlled the emotions. She controlled the version of events she wanted everyone to believe. But there is one thing I have learned after years on the bench. The person who controls the beginning of a story does not always control the ending. I looked toward the courtroom doors. Call David Reynolds. The room changed immediately. Madison's expression froze, not dramatically, not obviously, but enough. I noticed, her attorney noticed, and more importantly, Madison noticed that I had noticed. David Reynolds walked into my courtroom carrying a thin black folder. Unlike Madison's carefully managed entrance, his was quiet. No confidence, no performance. Just a man who looked uncomfortable being involved. He took the witness stand and raised his hand. After the oath was administered, I looked at him. Mr. Reynolds, please explain your connection to Madison Vale's company. He took a breath. I was the financial director for Vale Media. How long? 4 years. Did you work with Olivia Carter? Yes. Did you review the financial concerns she raised? He looked toward Madison's, then back at me. Yes. Interesting. Very interesting, because that small glance told me something. Fear. Not fear of the courtroom, fear of the person sitting across from him. I asked the question again. Mr. Reynolds, did you review Olivia's concerns? Yes, Your Honor. And what did you find? The courtroom became completely silent. David opened the black folder. I found that Olivia was correct. The silence that followed felt different. I looked toward Madison. Her posture changed immediately. The confidence she had carried all morning started disappearing. I continued. Explain. David removed several documents. Olivia discovered that several sponsored campaign reports did not match the actual payments received from companies, meaning the public numbers were different from the private accounting records. I looked at the documents. How different? Millions of dollars over multiple campaigns. The courtroom reacted, a quiet movement through the gallery. A few people exchanged looks, but I remained focused. Because numbers alone do not decide a case. People do. I looked at David. When did you discover this? After Olivia reported the issue, before she was terminated? Yes. I turned toward Madison. Mrs. Vale, you testified that Olivia was wrong. She said nothing. You testified that her concerns were unnecessary. Still silence. You testified that she was damaging your reputation. Madison's jaw tightened. I watched carefully. That was the moment I saw the confidence disappear. I turned back toward David. Did Mrs. Vale know about your findings? He hesitated. That hesitation mattered, Mr. Reynolds. He looked. She know? He slowly nodded. Yes, the courtroom became silent again. I asked, how do you know? He looked down. Because I told her. And what did she say? He swallowed. She told me to stop investigating. There it was, the same pattern, the same attempt to stop questions before answers appeared. I looked at Madison. Mrs. Vale, did you tell your financial director to stop investigating? Her attorney stood. Your Honor, this is becoming speculative. I looked at him calmly. No. I pointed toward the documents. This is testimony. He sat down. I returned to David. What happened after you refused to stop? David looked uncomfortable. I was removed from several meetings. Anything else? My contract was not renewed. Interesting. Very interesting. Two people, two different positions, both asking questions, both losing access, both becoming problems after looking too closely. I turned toward Madison. Mrs. Vale, she looked at me. How many people did you remove after they questioned your reports? She opened her mouth, then stopped, a dangerous moment. Because sometimes people reveal the truth by realizing they cannot safely deny it. I looked toward the evidence table, the black folder, the notebook, the email. Everything was connecting. But I was not finished. I reached for one final document, a document David had brought with him. Mr. Reynolds, yes, is this the original financial report? Yes. And is this the version submitted publicly? Yes. I placed both documents side by side, two reports, same company, same campaigns, different numbers. I looked at Madison. Can you explain why these two reports do not match? For the first time all morning, Madison Vale had no immediate answer, the woman who always had a response. The woman who built a career speaking directly to millions, the woman who told me everyone already knew she was honest, was silent. And then she said the one sentence that changed everything. That is not supposed to be here. I looked at her because those words were not a denial, they were an admission. And before I revealed the final evidence, I wanted the courtroom to understand exactly what those words meant, because Madison had just confirmed something she spent hours trying to hide. I looked at Madison Vale after she said those words. That is not supposed to be here. Four words that revealed more than any prepared statement could have. I have watched many people make mistakes inside my courtroom. Some lie because they are afraid. Some lie because they are angry. Some lie because they believe they are smarter than everyone around them. But the most damaging mistakes are the ones people make when they accidentally reveal they already know the truth. Madison had not asked what the document was. She had not asked whether it was authentic. She had not asked why it existed. She simply said it was not supposed to be there. That meant she knew exactly what it was. I let the silence remain. Silence is one of the most powerful tools in a courtroom. People often rush to fill it, and when they do, they usually reveal something they never intended to say. Madison's attorney leaned toward her. She whispered something back, but it was too late. The courtroom had already heard enough. I turned toward David Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds, explain these two reports. He nodded. The first one is the internal financial report. And the second? The one submitted publicly. And who prepared the public version? He looked down. Madison's executive team. With her approval. A pause, then yes. I looked toward Madison. Did you approve the public report? She adjusted herself in the witness chair. I approved many documents. That was not my question. The room became quiet. Did you approve this report? She looked at the document. Yes, interesting, very interesting, because people often think avoiding a direct answer protects them. It does not. Sometimes the missing word becomes the loudest answer in the room. I looked back at David. Why were the numbers different? He opened the folder. Because some sponsorship revenue was reported differently to the public than it appeared internally. Why? To make certain campaigns appear more successful than they actually were. I looked at the documents again. The numbers, the signatures, everything matched. But I still wanted to understand one thing. I turned toward Olivia. Miss Carter, she looked at me. When you first discovered this information, did you know what was happening? No, Your Honor. What did you think? I thought it was a mistake. Why? Because I didn't want to believe someone I trusted would intentionally do something wrong. That answer mattered, because it showed the difference between someone searching for truth and someone searching for revenge. Olivia did not begin with an accusation. She began with a question. Madison did not answer the question. She tried to destroy the person asking it. I looked toward Madison. Mrs. Vale, after Olivia reported these concerns, why did you accuse her of creating fake information? She remained quiet. Why did you tell people she was trying to damage your career? Still silence. Why did you file this lawsuit? Her attorney stood. Your Honor, I raised my hand. He stopped. Stop. I looked at Madison. She had spent the entire case saying Olivia wanted attention. But now the evidence showed something different. Olivia had written down concerns before anyone knew about a lawsuit. She had reported issues internally. She had avoided public accusations. And she had kept records. I reached for the notebook, the same worn notebook Olivia carried into my courtroom. I opened it again, page after page, dates, meetings, questions, response. Then I found one final entry, a note written 3 months before Olivia was fired. It said, asked again if financial reports could be reviewed. Told that some truths are better left unseen. I looked toward Madison. Did you say this? She stared at the page. No. Did someone else say it? I don't remember. Interesting, very interesting. People forget many things, but they rarely forget statements that never happened. I turned toward David. Mr. Reynolds, was there anyone else present when Olivia raised these concerns? Yes. Who? He looked toward the courtroom doors. Someone who worked closer with Madison than anyone. The room changed. I noticed Madison immediately looked toward the door, not toward me, not toward her attorney, toward the door. That reaction told me everything. I turned to the bailiff. Please call the next witness. The doors opened. A woman walked into my courtroom carrying a small tablet. She had worked beside Madison for years. She knew the brand, she knew the contracts, she knew the private meetings, and more importantly, she knew the moment Madison decided protecting her image mattered more than telling the truth. I looked at Madison. The confidence was gone because she finally understood something. The final witness was not coming to support her story. She was coming to end it. I watched the final witness walk toward the stand. Her name was Rachel Bennett. For 5 years, she had been Madison Vale's brand director. She was not a stranger. She was not someone who discovered the company from the outside. She was someone who had been standing close enough to see everything. And that made her testimony different. I looked toward Madison. She avoided Rachel's eyes. That was the first thing I noticed. Not the documents, not the expressions, the avoidance. Because people usually look toward someone who can help them. They look away from someone who knows the truth. I turned toward Rachel. Please state your position with Vale Media. I was the brand director. How long? 5 years. Did you work directly with Madison Vale? Every day. Did you participate in financial meetings? Yes. Did you know about the reporting concerns Olivia raised? Rachel took a slow breath. Yes. The courtroom became silent. I continued. When did you first become aware? She looked down. The first time Olivia brought the numbers to my attention. And what did you do? I told Madison. What happened? Rachel hesitated. That hesitation mattered. I waited. She told me to stop asking questions. I looked toward Madison. She remained still. Did you stop? Rachel shook her head. No, what happened? After that, Madison removed me from certain meetings. Interesting, very interesting. The same pattern again. Someone asked questions. Someone became inconvenient. Someone lost access. I looked at the documents, then at Madison, because by that point, the evidence was no longer showing isolated events. It was showing a pattern. I turned back to Rachel. Did you ever believe Olivia was trying to harm Madison's career? No, why not? Because Olivia never went public. Rachel paused. She kept trying to solve the problem internally. That answer carried weight because it separated two very different things, someone trying to destroy a person and someone trying to prevent a problem from becoming bigger. I looked toward Madison. Mrs. Vale, do you disagree with that statement? She didn't answer. I continued. Did Olivia ever threaten you? No. Did she demand money from you? No. Did she attempt to blackmail you? No. Then why did you accuse her of trying to damage your reputation? Madison looked down. The woman who entered my courtroom, believing her image would protect her, now looked like someone finally seeing the cost of protecting a lie. I reached for the final piece of evidence, a recorded conversation. Rachel's voice appeared on the document, a meeting transcript, a conversation from weeks before Olivia's termination. I read the first line aloud. "Rachel, if this becomes public, everything I built disappears." I looked toward Madison. "Did you say this?" She remained silent. I continued reading. "Olivia is asking too many questions." Another line. "She cannot be allowed to control the story." I placed the document down. That phrase stood out, control the story. That was exactly what Madison had been trying to do from the beginning. Not just with her company, with the courtroom. I looked at her. "You built your career by convincing people to believe a version of reality." I paused. "But a courtroom does not decide based on popularity." The room was completely silent. "It decides based on evidence." I reviewed the entire record, Olivia's notebook, the warning email, the financial reports, David's testimony, Rachel's testimony, the internal documents. Everything pointed in the same direction. I delivered my ruling. Judgment is entered in favor of Olivia Carter. The courtroom remained still. Madison Vale's claim is dismissed. I continued. "The evidence demonstrates that the defendant's accusations were unsupported and that the plaintiff attempted to shift attention away from legitimate concerns by attacking the credibility of the person who raised them." I looked toward the clerk. "Certified copies of the financial records and testimony will be referred for appropriate review." Madison lowered her head. The woman who built an empire around being admired was now facing the one thing she could not edit, the truth. I turned toward Olivia. She was holding her notebook again. The same notebook she carried into court. The same notebook Madison believed meant nothing. Miss Carter. She looked at me. "You kept records because you believed nobody would listen." She nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." I looked at the notebook. "Today, the records spoke for you." Her eyes filled with tears, but they were not tears of victory. They were tears of relief. Because being believed after being accused is a different kind of justice. Money can be replaced, a career can be rebuilt, but when someone attacks your honesty, that wound reaches much deeper. As Olivia left the courtroom, she carried the notebook with her. The pages were still worn. The handwriting was still the same. But they no longer represented fear. They represented proof. I have spent many years watching people underestimate the power of small details. A single email, a forgotten document, a recorded conversation, a handwritten note. People often believe the truth needs to arrive loudly. It does not. Sometimes the truth arrives quietly, waiting inside a notebook, waiting inside a folder, waiting for someone patient enough to look. Madison Vale walked into my courtroom believing millions of followers could protect her, but followers cannot erase evidence. A perfect image cannot survive an imperfect truth. And the biggest mistake she made was believing that controlling the story was the same thing as owning the truth. It never was. If this case reminded you that evidence matters and every person deserves to be heard, subscribe for more courtroom stories where confidence finally meets consequences. Comment below and tell me what you would have done if you were sitting in that courtroom.